Hey guys, what's up? My name is AJ. Welcome back to another episode of Drone Chat. Today we're going to be talking all about flying at the beach. It's finally summer. It's going to be warm. People are going to be at the beach. It's time to fly your drone, but there's a few things you should know before you fly. So let's get right into the video. Alright, before we get too far into the video, I want to just kind of make a quick disclaimer. This video is kind of intended primarily for maybe first-time drone pilots, people who are flying their drones for the first time at the beach. But we just want some tips. Stick around because there might be some helpful tips in here. Okay, so the first thing you want to do before you even bring your drone to the beach, you really should check to see if you're allowed to fly there. Now, at least in California, a lot of the beaches, practically like every beach, is like a national or state-owned beach. And as we know, all the national parks, which a lot of these beaches are, you cannot fly in. So you can't fly your drone if it's a national park. Now there's a lot of state beaches and state parks, and then that's kind of where it's like location by location and state by state. So there you can go onto Airmap or go directly into the Where to Fly app in the no-fly zones, which is powered by Airmaps. You type in the location, or you go to your current location. Make sure you have selected in there like you're a commercial pilot or a recreational pilot, and then select like, airports, national parks, and the filter section so that you can see all the locations. If it's red, you really can't fly there because it's a national park, and unfortunately, if you want to fly following all the rules, you can't fly there. So it's out of the picture. All right, moving on. You checked out the location. The beach is totally fine to fly in. Everything's good. That's awesome. Moving on to the next step. You get to the beach. Now there are a few immediate things that might come to mind. One, that there's a lot of people. We have to keep this in mind. And then two, sand. And then sand and electronics and components just don't really mix super well. So first of all, establish if it's windy. And if it is, take note of which way the wind's blowing. You're going to want to likely just kind of good practice fly into the wind, so if something happens, the drone will be carried back by the wind if you start running out of battery. The other reason you want to take note of wind direction, wind speed, is when you're setting up your drone and you have it near sand. If wind picks up and just starts blowing sand all over you, maybe it's nice to know where the sand's coming from. You kind of like block the drone. So what I like to do is bring like a beach towel, blanket. I'll set it down on the beach, put my bag on top of that, and then I can start putting stuff down on the towel so that if there's some breeze, it doesn't like flop over. So I'll put the drone out, I'll put the battery out, the propellers, I'll start putting everything together. The remote will be there, just sitting on the towel. Then I take my bag, my drone backpack. If you don't have this, there's like launch pads, a piece of cardboard, really anything works. You can hand launch it, but especially if you're a beginner, I wouldn't really recommend it. But it's not awesome to take off from the sand. You can do it, I'm not saying you can't, but it's going to kick up a ton of sand when you take off just directly off of the sand, and then it kind of gets everywhere, and then your drone, if it flips over for some reason, gets caught in something, it'll just dig into the sand. So if you can, put it on your like drone backpack, whatever it is. So I'll put it on my hard shell backpack. Once it's sitting on there, I turn it on, let it warm up, make sure I check all the settings, make sure it's calibrated, the connection's good, we're ready to fly. Okay, now at this point, you want to make sure there's no people like directly around you or underneath you, because you shouldn't fly on top of people. That's like best practice, plus the FAA states that in their guidelines. So what you're going to want to do is, maybe go to like a corner of the beach, a side of the beach, a place where there's no people that you're flying directly over. I mean, there's going to be people on the beach, obviously, but when you take off, there really should not be people around you in case, you make a mistake and you crash your drone, right? So you take off, you put the drone in the air. Once it's good and it's all checked out, you're good to go. Have fun. When you're going over water, just be careful because obviously it's over water. If something goes wrong, there's low chances of you getting it back. But the other thing to keep in mind when flying over water is there might be Coast Guard helicopters and other like emergency helicopters that don't necessarily adhere to like all the regulations, even if there's not like a heliport. And they're doing like drills and stuff like that. There might be a Coast Guard helicopter at like a low altitude. So just keep that in mind. They won't be like at 10 feet unless they're like actually saving anybody, obviously. But keep that in mind, keep your eyes out, because even if you're following all the rules, you still have to be cognizant of your surroundings. When you're coming into land, what I recommend doing is a catch landing. Grabbing it in the sky with your hands. This can be a little scary. Maybe practice it. If you don't feel comfortable, definitely don't do it. But just in my experience landing on the sand, 50% of the time it's great, 50% of the time it's not so great, and it flips over on its side, and everything gets sandy, and it's just a mess. So if you've mastered the, catch landing, the grab and catch, you don't even need anyone to help you. You bring the drone down to hand level, you grab it, and then you power the drone down. Then it stops, you have it in your hand, and you're good. It's pretty simple. You avoid a lot of sand getting into the drone and getting into other things. So that's basically it. Just to review, the things you want to keep in mind before you hit the beaches this summer to fly. 1, make sure that you're actually allowed to fly at the beach in terms of no-fly zones. If it's a national park, no can do. If there's an airport nearby, it's possible. You just need to call the airport and give them notice. Make sure it's okay with them. If it's not, you really are not supposed to fly there. Secondly, take note of wind direction. It's good practice to be flying into the wind. And then finally, make sure that there's no people directly, underneath where your drone will be flying. If you fly over water, it's great because there's no people really in the water. I mean, once you get out, maybe past a few swimmers. But those are, some key things to keep in mind when you're flying this summer. Hope you guys get some fun flying time out in the warm days, at least in California. It's already looking beautiful. I'll see you guys next time. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.